It's great to be back. Last week we talked about marriage. We're in the middle of this 4-week marriage series. And last week we talked about how do we encourage our spouses and what are the things that we can do to help really avoid some of those fights and challenges. And we're going to tell you right now, there are no fight stories this week. So for those of you who think that there's lots of fights going on, none of those. It's stories of encouragement this week. So we're going to talk this week a little bit about how do you keep your marriage relationship together in the midst of life, in the midst of parenting, in the midst of careers, and all of the things that we have to deal with on a regular basis. How does this relationship stay together? I like cooking. It's one of the things that I like doing. And I like to make a Brunswick stew. And I don't know if any of you have made that or had that stew, but for us, it's kind of the stew where you go into the refrigerator, and it's when I've smoked some meat, maybe some ribs or some pork. My mouth is already starting to water just thinking about it. It's good. And take all the meat off it and put it in a pot, but then you throw barbecue sauce and tomato sauce, and then you look in the fridge for what else is in there. Corn, potatoes, green beans, onions, carrots, and it takes kind of whatever you can find in the fridge that's going to fit, you put it in there, and out comes this amazing meal. And it seems like our homes have become a Brunswick stew, this stew of stepkids and nephews and nieces and cousins and step-parents and different personalities of our kids, so that even if we're in a traditional home, you look at your kids and you go, well, I have one child who's a social butterfly and another who's an introvert, one who's an intellectual superstar and another who struggles with this. I might have a child who's on the spectrum and another one who does great at sports. Or maybe in your home, you have the boomerang child, right? The child who went away to college and they're back again. So you thought you had your guest room or your sewing room ready to go, and it's not yours anymore. Your child is living in there because it's too expensive to get an apartment in the valley. And so our homes become this stew of life. And how do we, in the midst of all of that, maybe you have your parents who need to move back in, or you're taking care of your parents whose health is failing. But how do you keep this relationship strong? How do you do that? And so that's what we're going to talk about this week. But before we do, we'd like you to understand a little bit more about our family. So Penny told you some last week about how we met and our dating. But we want to talk to you a little bit about our kids and what that looks like. So I'll let you run with this.
Okay, so last week we shared that we met at work, and I was a single mom of 2. Elliot was not a single mom, and we got together and...
Never been a single mom, ever.
So Khalida is the oldest, and when I had Khalida, I was 19 years old, so I was a very young mom. And Khalida was really easy. She was well behaved. She was very compliant. I could give her that look, and she would immediately stop what she was doing. She was just really an easy child to raise. And when she got into high school years, we call it goth. She doesn't call it goth, but there were years where she didn't smile and barely talk to us. But that's another story. Now Khalida is married with 3 kids. She's a great parent and a great daughter, and I have had to learn how to parent an adult child. So, and still learning too.
Yeah.
And then we have Clayton, and Clayton was born blind and mentally challenged, and doctors said that Clayton would not be able to walk or talk, and he does walk and he does talk, although his communication skills are very limited. Raising Clayton, I had to be very creative and come up with ways to teach him. Oftentimes I felt isolated because there's only a handful of parents with blind kids. And really, how many blind people do you know? So with Clayton, it was very challenging. And there were lots of therapists and IEPs and the whole special ed. And Clayton, with his lack of communication and his behavior issues and anxiety, we've had a lot of obstacles, but also a lot of triumphs.
Yeah.
And together, Elliot and I have Annika, and Annika is 10. She just finished the 4th grade. And Annika is really different. I can't give her that look. It doesn't work. If I give her that look, she will ask me, "Why are you looking at me that way?"
And the snap doesn't really work
snap,
either.
Put that down. It's like, no, none of that works. So I'm learning new parenting skills. We are together. With Ani, it's a lot challenging because she wants conversation and reasons behind everything. So that's something that we're kind of working through. But yeah, that's it. So I've been a mom for 33 years, and I've been the young mom, and with Clayton, the creative mom, and with Ani, I'm like the old mom. So I kind of got a feel of it all.
And so that's kind of what our family looks like. Of course, that doesn't even talk about siblings and parents and grandchildren and all of those things, but it gives you an idea there. And so with all of that, there's that constant challenge of keeping this relationship good and keeping this relationship healthy amidst all of the things that come along with having kids. And for those of you who are here today, whose kids have grown up and are out of the house, we're realizing, and I know you have too, that parenting never stops. Even when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, it changes. Yeah. But you still very much hurt for your kids. You have joys when your kids have joys. And so it doesn't ever end. And so the question is how do we keep this relationship going? And so we're going to talk through a few concepts this morning, things that we do and have been helpful to us. And so hopefully they're helpful to you. So take it away. Concept 1.
Okay. Concept 1. The marriage relationship is the most important relationship in the home and takes precedent over the kids. Yeah. Now, not to say that the kids aren't important or they need you, but the relationship in the home, our relationship and our relationship with God, takes precedent over that.
Yeah. So go ahead and open your Bibles to Ephesians chapter 5. We were here last week. We're going to go to 5 verse 31. And while you're turning there, I'll just explain your fill-in-the-blank notes here this morning a little bit. I've given you some bullets over under this one. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's no answers that are going to come up on the screens that say 1 is this and 2 is this. I want you to write down what you hear and what stands out to you. So if only one thing stands out, that's great. If 6 things stand out, write all of those down too. So you have freedom in your notes here today, but I wanted to give you space to be able to write. It's just things that stand out to you.
And there also may not be anything new that we're sharing, but our hope is that it's just a reminder and an encouragement for your relationship.
Yeah. So Ephesians 5:31 says this. It says, "For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." So Paul wrote this, but what is God saying about marriage? What he's saying is that the marriage relationship is above all other relationships. It's greater than your relationship with your parents, with your in-laws, with your kids. It is the priority relationship out there. If we had a list of 1 to 5 of the priority of earthly human relationships, marriage, if you have that relationship, that is the one. That's the top of the list. But he also talks about this unity, that being united to your wife, becoming one flesh. And there's this picture of what does the unity look like in our relationships, the unity of the husband and wife. And so there needs to be this oneness. There needs to be this priority given to the marriage relationship. At some point, Lord willing, your children will leave the home.
Hopefully.
And when that day happens, you're going to look at your spouse, and you're either going to say, "We did it, we survived it, and we did it together. I love you more today than the day I married you because of all that we've been through and all that we've grown through, and we did it together." Or you're going to look and you're going to say,
Who are you?
Who are you? I don't even know what do we even like doing together? Who are we? I don't know you anymore. You're not the person I married. And let's be real. In 20 years, I hope you're not married. I mean, I hope you're still married to the person you married, but you've all changed along the way. And so have you changed together or have you changed apart? And when you reach that day, if your answer is, I don't know who you are, you'll have a couple of choices. One will be to continue to live as roommates. You can do that. Just, hey, we've been able to figure out how to do the home thing together, so let's do that. We'll raise kids together. Or we'll just be roommates. You can get divorced. That's an option. There is actually a spike after kids leave the home because husband and wives look at each other and go, well, we raised our kids. Good for us, but I don't know you anymore, so, we did our duty and let's move on. Or you kind of get to start over fresh and go, okay, I don't know you, but now I got to get to know you and let's see if we can work this out. My hope for all of you here is that when you get to that day where the kids are out of the house, you can look at your spouse and go, we did this together. I love you more than I loved you the day I married you. And let's do this whole empty nester thing together. And if you bring that togetherness and that unity through these parenting years, I think that's possible. So there's some things that we've done. We'll give you a few examples of things we've done that help prioritize our marriage relationship a couple times.
So basically what we do is the beginning of the year, typically, we will go through the calendar and mark nights, getaways, where for Elliot and I, it's not anything elaborate. It's just getting away, staying in a hotel for an evening. And even if you're at home and you don't have the kids, you have all your stuff there. You have your computer, you have the laundry, you have all the things that you need to do. But when you're in a hotel, there's nothing there but you and your spouse. And so we like to do that. And like I said, it's not a big deal. We live on 13th Street in downtown San Jose, and there have been times where we will go to a hotel on 1st Street. So it's not that we're doing anything or going anywhere far, but just to have that time spent together.
Yeah, we've gotten deals at hotels in Mountain View. So I've literally taken our luggage to the hotel, driven home because who's paying $35 for parking when you live 13 blocks away? And we've walked to the hotel after that. So, even one night's away don't have to be this huge elaborate thing. I mean, or date nights. Go sit by a lake and get some Oreo cookies and just sit there and eat Oreos and drink milk and just get away. And now your thing might be date nights. Like we have friends who just had a child. They can't be away from their child for more than 2 or 3 hours because the baby's that new. That's fine. Have
the 2 hours.
Mom and dad come over, you leave for 2 hours, get some, husband-wife time, and then come back home again. But the point of all of this too is not only the event, but you have to put it on the calendar. Calendar is what makes it a reality. So put it on the calendar. Do it before your calendar fills up. And when it's there, it becomes an immovable object. If you have scheduled this weekend, you get to say no to everything else. Now, obviously, there's things that come up that you have to say yes to. But rather than deleting it, maybe you move it a weekend or you move it out, but it can't go away. So that's our calendar is one of the best tools we use just to
otherwise
keep
it's
us,
just a good thought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and the year
that's
goes
a great
by,
idea, but it never happens.
Never happens.
And another thing that we also do is block out family days. So on those days, if the kids are invited to a birthday party or there's a game or whatever, we will not go. I mean, that is family time. And it shows the kids that not only is our relationship important, but also our family time together.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And just one other thing that we'll do from time to time, and I think it's a good habit. It shows our kids the priority of this relationship. But when we're both get home together at the end of the day, we'll sit on the couch and we'll talk. We'll just debrief for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, not a long time. But if Annika comes up and says, Dad, I need help with homework, do you want to throw the ball? The answer to that question is, not right now. Mom and I are talking, and in 5 minutes, I'll be happy to help you with homework. I'll be happy to go throw a ball with you. And what that does is it kind of sets that tone in the home that this relationship and us talking is highly important. So we're going to do this, and you're going to survive for 5 minutes without us. And when we're done talking, we will give you all kinds of attention and make sure that your math is done and English reports are done and we get to throw ball. And so the first time you try that, if your kids aren't used to this, they might throw a bit of a fit or slam a door. Or, you don't love me. I don't know what your kids are into, what they're going to say to you. But they get used to it actually pretty quickly. Where Annika now just goes, oh, they're talking, and she, wanders off and does something else. And so, again, the idea is to show our kids that this relationship is the priority relationship in the home. So, concept to grab onto here, kids matter, but marriages matter more. Kids matter, but marriages matter more. Don't neglect your kids. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Kids matter a whole lot, but marriage is a priority relationship. All right, concept number 2.
Life is a series of seasons. So we often want life to be consistent, predictable, and smooth, but really, has anyone ever really had smooth, predictable life?
Anybody?
Okay,
Life
come
gone
on.
just exactly how you planned it. No, life has its ups and downs, right? And there's things that are unexpected, and job changes, and moving, and unexpected births, or not the birth maybe, but the pregnancy. I hope the birth isn't unexpected, but unexpected children. Wow, I didn't think we'd have another one, but we're going to. So life is a series of seasons, and sometimes they're unpredictable. And if you want to flip in your Bible to Ecclesiastes, that's in the Old Testament, a little bit after the Psalms there. And Solomon has a few words about the seasons of life. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3, we're going to start at verse 1.
Okay. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance.
A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So what's Solomon saying when he writes all of this? That there's seasons, that there's times for everything, that things will come and go, that things will ebb and flow through our lives. And the big point I'd like to make here is that we need to keep life in perspective. We need to keep life in perspective. That idea that this too shall pass. I know as we've raised kids, and when Penn and I were dating, her daughter Kalita became pregnant. And I know that became quite an ordeal for us over the next couple of months. I don't want to tell me about that a little bit.
Sure. So at that time, Kalita had already moved out of the house, and so I'm going to tell my whole story.
Okay, you do that.
So she wanted to come back and tell me what, she had something to tell me. So anyway, I remember sitting there and her telling, she was only 19, telling me that she was pregnant. And for me, it was just my heart was broken because I had her when I was 19, and I know how hard it is to be a 19-year-old with a baby. And so it was really heartbreaking for me. And I wanted the best for her. I wanted more for her. I wanted better for her than what I had. But I also knew that however I responded to her, she would not forget. So this is probably one of the few times that I actually kept my mouth closed before just automatically speaking how I felt. And, I just sat there and said, okay, are you sure? And she's like, yes, Mom. I'm like, okay. And it was one of those things where you're almost looking down at yourself. I'm looking down going, is this really happening? This is not happening. And I asked her again, are you sure you're pregnant? And she was there with her boyfriend at the time, now husband. And they said yes, and we're having twins. And so you can imagine what I was feeling. And so that was it was just so heavy on my heart. And from that point on, I was like, I'm going to be supportive and help you any way I can. But I was still sad, and it was months of just this sadness. And Elliot and I, we were dating at the time, and he was around and there to help me process things, and really just huge influence in our lives. But you might want to.
Yeah. Well, if you are a single parent, and find somebody in your life who you can talk to, who you can bounce things off of, a family member, a friend, somebody in your community group at the church, other couples, somebody to kind of come alongside. And I don't know that I gave Penny a whole lot of advice in that season, but there was definitely the commiserating and the talking and just hearing her out as she was processing through things. And it was
the best part.
Yeah, the best part was October 31st, 2001. We're sitting in the hospital, the girls are born, and you go into the room after they're born, and you're holding these two little beautiful lives, and you realize that they haven't gone for the easy path, but boy, the blessing of a child is amazing. And it's really that moment, it really all changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it went from the day before, we're still looking at each other going, I don't know how they're going to do this. And then the girls were there, and it was
just
incredible. It was incredible.
Relief.
Yeah. And if you talk to Jesse, our son-in-law, he'll tell you that these girls saved his life. The path that they were going down with the drugs and the partying and the lives that they were pursuing before they got pregnant, Jesse would have probably, if not ended up in trouble, in jail, it's a possibility he would have just ended up dead, like actually his dad ended up. And so these girls ended up saving his life. And so, God does his stuff in ways that we wouldn't want it to get done. And as we look back now, our granddaughters graduate from 8th grade on Tuesday, and just to see the blessing they've been in our lives. Yeah. And so the idea behind this as far as marriage is, though, how do we keep perspective? The bigger picture that says, I don't know what God's doing, and I don't know why he's choosing to do it this way. But we're going to follow God and see where he's going in this. And then to remind your spouse of that. I know it's a huge thing with Clayton, too. Clayton, there's always challenges with Clayton. It's a constant. It's just that sometimes it's worse than other times.
Yeah.
And I know...
So with Clayton, Clayton lived with us up until he was 19 years old. And then there was a time where I had to really make a decision, felt that it was time for us to look for a group home for him. And that's hard because as a mom, that's your responsibility to take care of your child. And I was feeling guilty because I was trying to find a place for him, but at the same time, I also have another child at home that I need to take care of and make her safe, or her environment safe. So after a lot of conversations with not only Elliot and I, but my father, my older daughter, and my sisters, we all pretty much had come to an agreement that it was time. And so that was the most difficult decision I've ever had to make for Clayton, but it was the best. It has been the best because he, in his own way, has independence, an independent life, and a life of his own, although he does have caregivers that take care of him, but it was tough.
Yeah, and there's times even now where he'll be going through a struggle at his group home or in his day program, and Penn and I will talk about it, and then I usually will kind of end with, it's going to be this way with Clayton, but remember how faithful God's been, or God always gets him through it, or God always gets us through it. Yeah. And the one that stands out, like that amazing story, so he went into this group home, and after a few years, that group home had to close, and so we found out literally 2 weeks before we were taking our first go team to Nicaragua. I was also it was on a Saturday morning, which was my next to last weekend of seminary. So I had 1 week left of school, 2 weeks to get ourselves out of the country. We find out that Clayton needs to change group homes. And group home process, finding one, can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months to find a home with an opening, to find a home that would fit him for his needs and so on. And literally that following Saturday, Penny and I were packing him up at his old house, moving him to his new house. She had met with several different group homes, one with an opening, one that fit perfectly. When we got to the new group home, the director of the group home was actually a fellow student at seminary and was a pastor as well. And it was one of these amazing things where God just orchestrated this so that when we went to Nicaragua, there was no fear that his new group home, because Clayton struggles with transitions, his new group home was going to be a problem because we knew that there were believers there were other Christians who would be there to take care, and so we were actually freed to leave and kind of let some of those anxieties go. And so we come back to that story often and remember when God was faithful with. And that's part of partnering up. That's part of a husband and wife to just remember when God, because we all get caught up in our little things. Oh my goodness, what's happening at work? What's happening with my parents? What's happening with our kids? What's happening with this situation? And we can kind of come alongside and go, man, I'm with you. I agree. Let's journey through this together. Remember how faithful God's been. And so it's a way of keeping your togetherness. And when a season's over, celebrate. If a season's over and it ends well, go out to dinner, get a nice bottle of wine, just celebrate it. Because the truth is we don't celebrate the ending of seasons often enough. So take advantage of that. Go out, have a nice time, enjoy just the two of you having a nice dinner when you get to the end of your season. So, concept number 3.
You two are a team. How do we stay together in the stew of our lives?
Yep, as a team.
We do
this as a team. So if you turn over a page in Ecclesiastes, Solomon keeps writing about wisdom, things he's noticed. And do you want to read this one too?
Sure. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also,
if 2 lie down, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Can I get an amen on that one? Come on, somebody. Thank you, I appreciate that. Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. I love verse 12. We have a few families in our church who have 4 and 5 children. And when I think of those families, if the husband and or wife try to do this alone, they will get overpowered. 4 kids will take you down. So do not do this alone. Do it as a couple. Do it as a team. Your children are great. Our child is great at dividing and conquering. When your child wants something, who do they go to in your home first? It's usually me. I'm the big softy in our home. But Annika knows, I'm going to ask Dad because he's more likely to say yes. And my usual response is, have you talked to Mom yet? Because I want to find out if I'm coming second in line and Mom's already said no to this one. And sometimes the answer is, let me go talk to Mom. The other is, yeah, sure, go ahead. I'll take care of Mom. So how do we do this togetherness thing? How do we do this team thing? Why don't you take point number 1?
Sure. Pray together. Pray for the same things.
Yep.
And share your family prayers with one another. So that we're praying for the...
Yeah, no, do it.
No, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like the co-host. Go ahead.
Pray together. Physically, get together and pray together. Sit down in the morning, the evening, whatever's a good time for you guys, and pray. But also, make sure you know what you're praying for your kids, for your siblings, for your parents, so that during the day when you think of your child, you too are praying the same direction. You're praying for how they're going to do in school. You're praying for your siblings and the struggles they're going through. So just share your prayer requests. Let it be known so that whether you're together or apart, you're still praying in the same direction. And then another thing is just Parent as a team. Be together as a team. The first thing is know the plays. Know the plays. Know who's going to do the discipline, how you're going to discipline, who's going to met out the discipline. Talk about what ages are you going to let your kids have cell phones. What age are you going to let them do sleepovers. Annika this week asked me when she can watch The Shining because she goes out and we have The Shining on our list of DVDs. And I said, I don't know, but I know it's not right now, okay? But I want to watch that with you because it's an awesome movie. So if you don't know the answer to the play, you don't have to give an answer. Okay, you're the parent. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no. You can say, hold on, I'll get back to you. And they can, oh, but come on, would you just... No. Okay? If you want an answer, the answer is no. But if you want to let me talk with your mom, it might be different. So you choose what you'd like right now. And so if you don't have the answer, get together and discuss it. But do it in private. Go into the bedroom, go to a place, get on the phone during the day at work when your kids aren't around and discuss it. And if there's a difference between the two of you, you're disagreeing on how you're going to handle this. Can they go over to a sleepover? No, they can't go to... I don't know that person's parents. They're not doing a sleepover. Your spouse says, yeah, it's fine. She'll be good. She's old enough. If you disagree, that's fine. But when you leave that room, when you leave that conversation, leave unified and have a unified front when you tell the kids. Don't ever say, your mom said no, but I said yes. And your mom won, but I really wanted you to go super bad. But I'm sorry you can't go because your mom stinks and she won't let you do anything fun ever.
I'm a fun killer?
Yeah, the fun killer. Yeah, your mom is the fun killer. No, do not do that. Don't ever do that. Go out united front. If you are a step parent, that's the one exception where maybe you go out and biological parent, I thought no. Step parent thought yes. Step parent one, she's the cool mom right now, okay? So she's the cool stepmom. Give the mom credit. And that's a great thing just for any of our marriages. Always talk up your spouse. Tell your kids how great your spouse is. Tell your friends, tell your whatever, how great. Just talk them up. It's a great habit to get into. So, and then, number 3. You want to do that one?
Sure. It's to ask for forgiveness. One another and also with your children. I mean, there are times that I've had overreacted and had to apologize to Annika for the way that I behaved. And I try not to with Elliot. Try not to do anything I have to apologize for. Yeah. But I will.
That's one of my goals. Don't say anything you have to apologize for. Your kids are watching, and we want to model to our kids this idea that we do get it wrong sometimes, and when we do, we ask for forgiveness. It's not something that was modeled to us greatly as kids, and we want that to be different for our kids. And so we want to say, hey, I got it wrong this time, and so I apologize for doing that, and do you forgive me? And let our kids see that.
You know what? I think this is also good. What we talked about is, even if you're not a parent, you're an aunt or an uncle, your nephews and nieces are watching your relationship and how you interact together. So you can have influence on other children in your family besides your children, your own children. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Concept 4.
Bring your kids up in the ways of the Lord.
What is our marriage goal in relation to raising our kids? What should our marriage goal be in relation to raising our kids? And for us, it's that we want to model to our kids the type of behavior and marriage we would want them to have. When we look at our daughter, if you look at your son and you look and you say, what kind of marriage do we want them to have? Who do we want them to become? We want to be that example to our kids. Our kids are watching us. And so, in fact, let me say it this way. Our kids are becoming what you are. Our kids are becoming what you are. And so if you want your kids to be something different, you're probably going to need to be something different so that your kids can become what you want them to become. I'm going to read you a few verses. They're kind of going to be all over the Bible, so you don't have to turn there. But Ephesians 6:4 says this. It says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." This idea that one of our marriage goals, one of our parenting goals is to train our kids up. Deuteronomy 11:19 says, "Teach them," that means the law, teach them about God. Teach those things to your children. Talking about the law, talking about God when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. God should be infiltrating our homes. And the first place they should see that is in your marriage. The first place that your kids should see God is in your marriages. And Malachi 2:15 says this, "And what does that one God seek? Godly offspring. So be on your guard, and do not be unfaithful to the wife of your youth." It says, what does God want? He wants godly offspring. How do you do that? Stay faithful to your wife. Stay together with your spouse. When you two are together, the results of that is raising godly children. When you two are faithful to one another. And there's so many ways that lives itself out. Why don't you give us the first one?
Well, the first example we talked about last week, just the communication and the way that you interact with one another. So with respect, honor, care, and love.
Yeah. In front of your kids, not in front of your kids, but show that love, that care, that respect. Another concept is bringing them into your decisions and discussions. Bring them into your decisions and discussions.
Which are age appropriate.
Age appropriate, absolutely. I heard an example this week. Corey Ten Boom asked her grandfather a story and said, would you tell me about this? Why did this happen, Grandpa? And Grandpa sent her to a suitcase and said, pick that up. So she went over to pick up the suitcase, and it was too heavy for her to lift. And she came back and said, "Grandpa, I can't lift it." He said, "Exactly. When you can lift that suitcase, you'll be old enough to understand that story." The idea is that our kids aren't always ready for some of the heavy things that we deal with in our lives. So there's some things that we hear, that we are deciding on, that our kids aren't ready for. But when they are, how do we bring them into those age-appropriate discussions? This last Tuesday was a grumpy day for me at the office. And I also...
At home, too.
At home, too?
Yeah.
Okay. I was grumpy at home, too. So there we go, I guess. All right. I was going to tell a success story out of this.
That
was on Wednesday, I guess. So Tuesday, I got also a couple of emails. You know those emails you get where you want to reply immediately with the nastygram, really? And boom, I'm going to lay it down on you right now. Here, I got one coming. And then you realize I still got to do business with this person, so that's probably not the right way to handle it. And then, for me, my signature block says executive pastor. And that's always a little convicting when you know that they're going to see pastor at the bottom of the email. So I wrote them and then put them in the draft folder and let them simmer for a couple of hours. It came back to them and then sent out appropriate emails. And on the way home, I was talking to Annika and kind of told her the story. Hey, this happened, and here's what I wanted to do, but here's what I did. And just to let her come in that, there's days where these things happen. And how we respond matters. And then Wednesday, when the positive results of the emails I sent started to come in, got to go back to her and go, hey, check out what happened as a result of me behaving well, me acting right and sending a decent email. And those are the things where I think it's great to bring. Our kids don't hear what we're thinking. Our kids shouldn't hear everything we're thinking, okay? So use the filter. But there's also things we need to be bringing them in to part of the discussion. And the same is true. It goes back to the forgiveness piece, but sometimes if we get it wrong, it's good to go back and go, you know what, I think I blew that one. And here's what I did, and here's what I was thinking, but as a result of it, that was not the right way to handle it. And so I think even revealing some of our mistakes to our kids can do that. To bring this back to marriage, I'd like you guys to turn to Ephesians for me again. We're going to Ephesians chapter 5. And we're going to conclude with this passage. And we've actually been through this passage each week for the last 3 weeks, or the last 2 weeks. This is our third week in a row. And we're going to draw another little nuance out of this passage. So it's Ephesians chapter 5. We're going to start at verse 25. And Penn, I don't know if you want to start here.
Sure. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by washing with the water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy, blameless.
In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they fed and cared for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. So, do you see what Paul is doing here? Amongst a bunch of different things, but he's mixing together this marriage and church metaphor. This metaphor of Jesus loving the church, and that Jesus' love is caring and loving and redeeming. And that kind of Jesus' love is a picture to us of what Jesus' love is like. But also our marriages are a small picture of that same Jesus love. You see, Paul is intertwining these two pictures. The Jesus love and the husband-wife love, the spouse love, is actually a small picture of what Jesus' love for the church looks like. So when we are together, when we're unified, when we love one another, when we respect one another, when we care for one another, when we encourage holiness and spiritual habits, that's a picture of Jesus' love for the church. So you see, your marriage, you're a walking around picture of Jesus and his love for the church. Your marriage should be this beautiful drawing, small, albeit, but a small picture of that same love that Jesus showed to us. If we want to survive the crazy busyness, the long hours at work, the struggles with our kids, with our siblings, with our parents, with our grandchildren and nephews and nieces and aunts and uncles and neighbors and everything else, then we need to be together in our marriages. We need to show Jesus. You see, your togetherness in your marriage, that unity in your marriage, will make a difference in the next generation. It will be the picture that your kids look to and they say, that was some amazing care and love that my parents showed to one another. No matter the situation, no matter the circumstance, no matter the frustration in the home, mom and dad always spoke to one another with love and care and respect. And even if it got passionate and loud and challenging, I always knew they would stay together. There was never a doubt about it. It's that kind of love, unity, and security that will help our kids grow up to be the next generation of world changers. And they'll change the world for Jesus because you guys stayed together in your marriage and lived out that Jesus to the church kind of love in front of your friends, in front of your family, and at home when the doors are closed and it's only you and your kids. And they see what really happens. And they'll look and they'll go, that was incredible. So I want you to know that as you enjoy your marriages, as you stay together through the ups and the downs, as you work together as a team, you're changing the next generation. You're creating a foundation, a relational foundation on which your kids can stand and go, my mom and dad loved each other so much. And I saw Jesus in my home lived out, and now I'm going to go live that out in my community and in my marriage when I live that out. And so this week, as we go from this place, I want to encourage you, live that Jesus kind of love, that unity, that love, that care, that respect kind of marriage in your own homes. So we're going to invite Melissa Moore up. She works with our 4th and 5th graders, and she's going to tell us about this week's enjoyment activity. Thank you. This is Melissa. Would you welcome Melissa? Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Melissa Moore, and I work with Step 45 students, the 4th, 5th graders that are just over there. Really fun. I also am a wife to my husband, Chris, and a new mom. Our son, DJ, is 2.5 months old, so he's brand new. So we're still trying to get used to the whole parenting thing and balancing that with being a couple and being married and having our marriage friendship. And so just want to announce our enjoyment activity for this week. We're going to be doing something that she wants to do. So that would be the wife. So whether she picks something herself and decides this is something that I want to do with my spouse, or husbands, if you want to surprise her and plan something, that's always fun. So just an idea, something that my husband and I did this last week. I'm a history buff, biblical history buff, and so this week we went to the Egyptian History Museum here in San Jose. Search for it on Yelp, it's on there. It's pretty cool. So we went there, walked around, looked at all the exhibits. Then after that we went to lunch together and just spent time together. We just love, we're both quality time as far as our love languages go. And so we just needed that, just to really spend time together and just enjoy our friendship. So whatever you guys want to do, again, it's her week this week. So make sure you do something that she would enjoy doing. If she's not into golf, don't take her to go golfing. Unless she loves golf, then go golfing. Anyway, so just choose something that she would like to do, and make sure you use the hashtag. It should be up here, maybe. Oh, there it is. FunYet15. So the hashtag helps us to see what everyone else in our church is doing, maybe to encourage each other or give each other ideas. So again, make sure on Instagram, Facebook, use the hashtag FunYet15.
Yeah, that's great.
Have fun.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.